She just peed on the ground.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay. It's okay, Queenie. Yeah. Thanks. Watch out for that. Yeah.
All right, so before we get started, we put on the website some consultation form.
Yeah.
We start recording training sessions and sessions and consultations. All right, so, Queenie, very excitable, I can see.
Yeah.
So going over your form right now, very excitable, and then separation anxiety, was it?
You know, at first, because when we adopted her from another family, and when we go out, she'd like bite the walls or like just have just the biting was like for me I studied psych. I'm like maybe this is her anxiety kind of forming. She stopped that. We just was doing a lot of reassurance, like I don't know, like just she's been here for 2 years now, so she knows she's not going anywhere. But we did go on a trip earlier this year, and she was just very anxious at her boarding situation. So I just suppose that's what I'm attributing it to.
So when you left and she was boarded, the anxiety she had there is what you're saying?
Yeah, but like typically if I'm like doing something in the day, like she can be pretty independent. She chooses to kind of like, sometimes, for instance, like I'll allow them to sleep in my room, my 2 dogs. Sometimes she just doesn't, and that's fine, and she doesn't have an issue with that. I wake up in the morning and she's just like, hey, and I'm like, hey, and that's just kind of it, so.
Sure. So, and then aside from, because I think I read that you're going to be moving out at some point, and she's going to be coming with you, is that right?
Not soon, but like eventually,
okay.
You know, in a year or so maybe.
Okay, and what are you hoping to achieve with Pittie here?
Well, a few things. One, just on our walks, like hopefully her not to pull on our walks.
Okay.
Name recall and the jumping. Like if I take her to the park, she's cool. She's pretty much a good dog, but she'll like jump on people to say hi, and just like the boundary thing about like other people and stuff. Sometimes people just, I don't know. I just don't want her to jump on people.
Yeah. I mean, when if she, jumps on the wrong person and knocks him down,
Exactly.
jumps on the kid, gets him out on them or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like just like real general like obedience type stuff.
Yeah. And she's like, I've kind of taught her certain things, but it's really just like consistency with it. And even like my brother came home and he just started teaching her stuff, and so she enjoys that process. It's just, I just think it's different if she gets formally trained versus
You guys train
if we do it. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Because she's social, right? Dogs, people, no issues, no reactivity, anything like that.
Not at all.
Okay.
So my other dog is like had that issue when he was like, he's more like introverted, and we're just so surprised with her because that's what we were used to. That she has. She has none of those issues.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Before reaching out, did you research our methods and how we train?
Yeah. So use like the collar and yeah. So I've reconciled with all of that. I'm cool with all of that.
Okay, and I'll break it down some more just so you're more educated on it.
Yeah, totally.
Anything else about Queenie I should know?
No, those are pretty much her only issues. I will say, like, with the biting thing, like, she still kind of sometimes maybe uses it when playing.
Oh, sure.
So that's the only, sometimes I wonder, like, okay, when I'm older, might have kids, like, she doesn't do it maliciously, but of course, like, it doesn't matter, because even if she does it, if she's playing, it might hurt someone, she, you know, I don't know, with her teeth and stuff, so,
Okay.
that's just the other thing that sometimes I think about, but.
Okay. So when it comes like to nipping or biting during play, it's normal.
Okay.
Okay. I know, especially because I have a pit,
Oh, okay.
is that with pits, people at the dog park, if they're not very dog savvy or understand dogs, they look at that and think, oh my god, it's a pit and it's biting.
Yeah.
Right? But that's just how dogs play. We have puppies out there, they play, they're biting each other and stuff like that. They pull on their ears, they pull on fur and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The problem is it doesn't transfer well to humans, right? Because we don't have fur to protect us.
Yeah.
So we really feel the contact of those teeth, right? So it is something that can be corrected, you know, but don't, there's nothing wrong with your dog. You have a dog.
Yeah.
You know, that's just part of their language. They use it to play, they use it to correct, they use it to show affection.
Yeah.
You know, they're very mouth-based. So that I'm not too concerned about. This seems pretty straightforward. I keep wanting to say Sweetie because I just worked with a pit bull whose name was Sweetie.
Yeah.
So every time I look at her, I just keep thinking that name. So yes, we use e-collar, prong collar.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the pulling and stuff you're dealing with here, harnesses actually promote pulling.
Yeah, I really don't want to use a harness. I don't, and it was, you know, it's one of those things. It was like, okay, let's just put it on, but I don't want to use one. I want her to just kind of be there with me on the walk.
Right. So when it comes to the obedience stuff of it, sit, stay, down, come, place, heel, or 6 functional commands. They're meant to be useful. They're meant to be applicable during your life so that you can do more things with Queenie.
Yeah.
But I think now they've kind of been turned into tricks. Things that your dog would do, you know, for a treat, but things that your dog does that, you know, is cute.
Yes.
And it's like paw, I don't care about paw, I don't care about rollover, I don't care about anything like that. I care about those 6 functional and foundational obedience commands.
Yeah.
Okay. So here, with the remote collar, have you ever been to a chiropractor or a physical therapist?
No, but I do use a TENS unit. That's what the person, like someone else was referring to it as, yeah.
Correct. So e-collar is the same technology as a TENS unit. It's just a muscle stimulator.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's 2 probes on the collar that will touch the neck, and then you would see the muscles twitch right in kind of that neck shoulderish area. Okay. So it's not electrocution. There's not an electric current running through your dog's body.
Yeah.
They can go in the water with it. They're not going to get electrocuted or anything like that. It's all centralized. Okay. So the reason why I do remote collar is because 1, right off the bat, we can start working on off-leash reliability. Okay. 2, it's easy for the owner to learn. The methods are very simple. There's not much need for technical skill in terms of using the tool. I call it biting a button, you know, because dogs are physical animals, so the play or the correction like that is that it's the easiest and like simplest way for someone to mimic a dog bite if we're correcting behaviors or if we're trying to teach something. Okay. So there's 3 kind of major methodologies of dog training that are popular. You have food-based only, which would use like a gentle leader or no pull harness or harness. Then we have prong collar, which is the spiky looking collar.
Yeah.
And then we have e-collar.
Yeah.
Okay? Those 3 tend to be the most popular methods. Food-based only has a very low ceiling because if one of the dogs is food motivated, we got nothing to work with.
Yeah.
If the environment is more stimulating than the food or more rewarding than the food, we got nothing to work with, right? If playing with her friends is more rewarding than coming back to you, we have nothing to work with, right? Prong collar is a great tool, requires more technical skill, but also once you remove the leash, you no longer have that control anymore. Okay, so you'll be great on leash, but off leash she's gonna go, but you still can't make me come back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the e-collar allows us on or off leash to reinforce any and all commands. Okay, so that's why I just jumped into it. So all our dogs and puppies over 6 months are trained on the e-collar. Okay, any dog that walks out of here that's trained by us is on the e-collar. Exception being puppies under 6 months. They're trained with food, clicker, gentle leader type stuff because they're just puppies under 6 months. it's like kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, when it comes to using these tools, I think people are concerned that they're hurting their dog.
One more time.
They're concerned that they're hurting their dog.
Yeah.
It's a really common notion. Growing up, I was raised old school. I was spanked. Spanking hurt, but the intention was not to hurt me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
So like dogs correct each other. They don't need to know each other. Like if you go to the dog park, I'm sure you've probably seen at some point dogs kind of get into it, right?
I've seen my older dog correct her.
Right.
Yeah.
So they use physicality. They don't have a conversation. They don't say like, read these rules. These are the rules of the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't give each other treats. They don't give each other CBD.
Yeah.
They don't console each other. Like dogs just, they correct what they don't want. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then as long as nothing's going on, they just coexist. Okay. Humans unfortunately make things too complicated, and they put too much emotion into things and stuff like that, and that's why so many dogs have problems nowadays. It's the most common thing that dogs are lacking now is just simply this discipline, because a lot of times people are redirecting their dogs, trying to get them to engage in a toy, using food. There is no real consequence for doing something they disagree with, like jumping, putting them in timeout. Using a can of pennies or a water bottle, like all those things are things that are just to a dog bite. If you compare them to a dog bite, they come nowhere near that, right?
Yeah.
So that's why like, the tools like prong collar were created, because it mimics the dog bite. That's why it looks the way it looks. Which is again, it's a great tool, but it's just limited.
Yeah.
Okay, and the e-collar allows me to not only bite the dog, but also level it appropriately to the dog's personality type, to the situation. For emergency situations, right? So if I have like a really soft dog, I'm gonna be really low in the collar.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a really stubborn dog, I'm gonna be higher up in the collar.
Yeah.
If I have an emergency situation, probably gonna be maxed out in the collar, right? So I'm trying to override the situation. So it's the most versatile tool in my opinion. The first thing that we always teach is leash walking, or walking at our side, the heel. The reason why we always do that first is because one, if there are behavioral issues, it fixes like 60 to 70% of problems, okay? The other thing is, when you put an e-collar on a dog and you press the button, and they feel it, they tend to want to move away from it, okay? So the first instinct is almost always flight, because they don't know what it is. They're not meant to have their necks contracted. So we use a moving command or moving behavior to teach the dog how it turns on and how it turns off, but also to help to give them the ability to express that movement in response to the e-collar, okay? So once Queenie were to learn, oh, when I feel this, it means come to my mom's hip, we start to teach the foundation of heel, okay? So I don't want the dog to ever run away from me. They always should, if anything, come to me, okay? And then we start to shape it. So the first class is almost always gonna be heel, well, at least the first half of it, because it's a two-part command. So the first lesson, I teach the first half of it. I give you your homework, you come back a week later. How are things going? Oh, Jessie, she's walking much better, she's 80% better, blah, blah, blah. I go, great, we're gonna make a couple of adjustments. We're gonna start tattling it now. We don't put the name on it the first week. We tattle it the second week.
Okay.
Because typically with people, because we're so sound-based, is if I tell them to use the word heel on the first class, almost always, they're using the word and not using the collar. Okay? You have to use the collar to teach the behavior. Okay? So that this way it forces the owner to have to use the remote instead of using the word. Because the other thing is people feel bad. They go like, they want to give their dog the opportunity to be a good dog and to avoid the correction. But by doing that, you're prolonging the process. Because dogs aren't proactive like humans. It's not you train your dog and then one day Queenie goes, hey, thanks for teaching me how to be a good dog. I'm gonna be a good dog now. Like a human could. Like a human could do something, regret it, and then turn around, right? Just change their life from that point on. Or they could have a very impactful or traumatic experience and just turn their life around, right? Dogs don't do that. At least not in that kind of sense. Dogs will do negative responses, meaning like, I've had dogs that were friendly for like their entire lives, and then maybe an off-leash dog attacked them, and the next day, their dog's aggressive. Okay? So, but I've never seen a dog just one day wake up and be a good dog for their owner. Okay? So, it's something that you will, it's based on you. If you're reinforcing the rules and the boundaries and the expectations, you're gonna get that in response. Okay? So the first two classes almost always heel. If everything's going well, by the third class, we're jumping into recall, which is the come uncalled. Okay, so those are like the two most important things.
Yeah.
You kind of noted, aside from jumping and then the play biting.
Yeah.
Right? So we jump into recall, that's typically 2 classes as well.
Okay.
So by class, so I have 6, 9, and 12 week programs. You're probably right in that 6 class range, okay?
I'm just gonna start taking them through notes.
Sure, and Maria will send you this information too.
Oh, okay, so never mind.
Yeah, you don't worry about that stuff. You're probably, if all you're looking for is walking your dog, making sure your dog comes back when you call her, and then like just a few basic things,
yeah.
you're most likely gonna get that done in 6 classes, okay? So 2 classes on heel, 2 classes on recall, which leaves us classes 5 and 6, okay? 5 and 6 we can use to go over the jumping, we can use it to go over play biting, which is very, very simple, because behavior and obedience are very different. Obedience is do this, and behavior is don't do that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so sit, stay, come, right, do that. Sit when I tell you to sit, come when I call it. Jumping, play biting, it's don't jump, don't play bite, right? So it's very simple, but people tend to use obedience to fix the behavior. So if the dog is jumping, they'll go, no, sit, right? And then the dog keeps jumping because they're either too excited, there's too much stimuli going on, and the word's going in one ear, not the other, okay? So there, technically, yes, you could say sit or have the dog sit to prevent the jump, or you can just teach the dog not to jump. It's that simple, right? It's like, I don't care that you're standing, I don't care that you wiggle around, I don't care that you, walk around me and through my legs. I just don't want you to jump on me, right?
Yes.
So it's simpler than people make it to be. Same thing with play biting. If I'm playing with the dog and they start to bite me, if I were to say sit and they sit, nothing says don't bite me. So then when we go back to playing, they're going to go back to play biting again. Okay, so they have to be corrected for the behavior. So that's where aversives come into play. So e-collar does both.
Okay.
E-collar can teach obedience, but it can also teach don't do that.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's again very versatile. So here, and it's also very subtle, so like let's say you want to teach her how to play, but how to play without being mouthy. You would engage her with play, have your collar on her, right, have your remote on you, and then when she tries to bite you or nip at you, you would just correct her, but then you would keep playing. That's what another dog would do. If she was playing with another dog, and she was mouthing or play biting too hard, that dog would nip or bite back and say, hey, that's too hard, right? And then they would continue to play. And if she did it again, the dog would bite her back and say, hey, just go too hard. And they would keep playing, right? If we stop the activity or try to redirect the behavior, she's not learning to not do it.
Yes.
And you're trying to teach her, you can play with me, you can play with my cousins, you can play with the kids or whatever, just don't put your mouth on it, okay? So it's easier than you think, it just takes time and repetition to kind of get that in the head, okay? Otherwise, with class 5 and 6, we can also teach other things, like let's say you want stationary control, like to go somewhere and lay down for like an hour or two, while you go out to a restaurant, or if you go to a friend's house and just want to have her under control, not all over the place. That's also something that can be done within that time frame, because this is simple. Okay, if you have more stuff to deal with, like more behavioral stuff, that's the biggest variable, is always behavior. I have an idea of how long it takes to correct behavior, but because it is behavior, there's so many factors that come into play. I have an idea of how long it takes, but for obedience, it's pretty straightforward, okay? Because I teach you to teach her, and then you practice, okay, and you apply it. Now, the most important dog training is applied dog training, meaning you use it. So most people train for like 10 to 15 minutes, and then they go about their life for their dog, and then one day they're like, you know what, I need you to sit right now. But they don't apply it, right? So you're trying to take something that you do in a very controlled, short time frame, and you make it happen in that one moment. Does that make sense? So once we learn the skill, you use it. That's what makes it functional, okay? Once she learns how to walk at your side in heel position, when you walk her, you utilize it, okay? Because the other thing is, people will teach the behavior, but then they won't use it, right? And they'll get it really well, but then they're like, okay, the dog knows it, so now I'm gonna just like not use it anymore. Or they feel bad because they're like, well, the walk is for the dog. And I go, but if you're walking your dog like this for months after you taught them heel, and then one day it's like, hey, I need you to heel today. It's like me. If you ask me to do that tomorrow, it's not happening. I don't know how it goes in high school, right? If you don't use it, you lose it, right? So it's just applying more structure throughout her day as you go about your day with her, okay? So like every time you take out for a potty walk, that would be your training time. Okay? So if you do 3 20-minute walks a day, you would let her do her business, and then you go about your training walk. In the beginning, you're teaching, but then once she learns it, you would just go out, let her potty, heel, she comes to your hip and you start walking. So you've already taught the behavior. And now you're just using it. When it comes to recall, and this is all frustration here.
Yeah, okay, I was like,
yeah.
Good.
How often does she do that?
Honestly, not like this. Like if we're in an environment like this, she knows there are dogs, she smells them, whatever. Like, she's excited because she's kind of the type of dog that wants to play all the time. So if we're by the park, like she'll be like very alert, like, let's go to the park. At home, she doesn't do this.
Yeah. So it's all frustration, right? Because this year, she's gonna be doing this dog playing and stuff. What I'm gonna have you do is take your leash and clip it to her flat collar here.
Okay. Hello.
Do you mind if I take her?
No. Yeah. Okay. That's it. So the biggest thing that she did, we were at a park, and so she'll get excited like this with people, but at the park, she was running and everything was fine, and all of a sudden she ran to a lady and like hopped into her lap, and at that moment I was like, she does great at parks where there aren't benches, but when there are ways for people to sit, I don't want her to jump into people's faces accidentally.
Sure.
Yeah.
And someone will misread this, right? Like I see this as a wiggle worm, which is very overstimulated. Unfortunately, it'll too. Someone's stepping over her head.
Well, realistically, we don't really use the collar as a penalty. So I accidentally bought the wrong size when I
You got her? Or when you got her? Yeah. You're a little tank. So, here, this is overstimulation. Okay? So when she gets excited, she's going way over the top. Okay? So here, a lot of her frustration when you were sitting down is all of this here wanting to get out. Does that make sense? There we go.
Yeah. And like even though she doesn't do that thing often, or like the incessant whining, like the energy of her is she's definitely this energy a lot of the time.
Yeah. This energy here is a bit over the top. Because this coat is too off.
Yeah, and I wrote in my letter. Well, like I recognize she just like has a lot of energy. Like in the summers, I take her on runs and stuff. I enjoy that type of thing, and she does. When she's able to get her energy out, it's great. But of course, we just never learn to heal things, so she's pulling and things like that.
Yeah. So here, this is an energy. This is just lack of boundaries.
Okay.
Okay. So the difference between energy and lack of boundaries is like here. Let's say you came back from a run.
Okay.
And she saw me, and I grabbed the leash just like we did here. She most likely
would
do all that stuff. Okay. Energy-based things would be like, let's say in the house, she's constantly doing something.
Okay.
You run her, and you come back, and then she just sleeps for the rest of the day. Okay, like you just see an immediate shift in behavior. Here, you could run her, bring her in, and I take her from you, and I'm sure it'd be the same, just like, hey Jesse, right?
Yeah.
That's just lack of boundaries. So here, it's learning how to greet appropriately.
Okay.
So when you said like teach her not to jump, right? So here, what I did was, as soon as I took her, I didn't say anything to her. I just immediately started to put her, it looks like a sit to people, but really what I told her is just relax. Okay? So I wasn't petting her or anything. I'm just asserting myself and telling her right now, the only thing you need to do is sit down and chill.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's a difference between mental control and physical control. Obedience is physical control. So you could tell her to sit, and she'll sit because she can still be really excited, right?
Yes.
Mental control is, I don't care what you do, just be relaxed.
Yeah.
Right? Like here, now the brain's getting frustrated, and she's hearing the dogs barking.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to disagree with even the vocalization, and just teach her like, hey, when you hear these things, or if I'm, touching you, whatever, just relax. And this is all normal.
Yeah.
Because she's not been made to sit still ever. So this is something completely new for the brain.
Yeah.
So she's constantly wanting to do this, and I'm countering her and telling her, slow it down.
Yeah.
Right? So the more I would have her, you would start to see like a lot of that stuff go away.
Okay.
Because of all the rules that are reinforced. Okay? So most people always come in thinking they need obedience, when a lot of times they just need behavior. Okay? Like the most common problem I deal with is overstimulation, which is usually just stems from a lack of boundaries. Because no one disciplines their dog. Or at least they don't discipline their dog the way a dog should be disciplined.
Yeah.
Remember, dogs fight each other.
Yeah.
Right? So if she came in with that kind of energy to my dogs would nip her bite her for sure. Because if you saw my
I watched
pit,
the videos.
yeah. If you saw my pit come in here, she'd just come in and lay down and just flute and like just chill. Because that's the energy right now, right? If we're in a dog park and stuff, she'd be running around having a good old time. Because that's what the setting is. Okay? So here, other than what's going on out there, there's nothing going on in here.
Yeah.
That she doesn't need to be on this degree. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's just interesting because I feel like, I don't know why she does that, but her energy was so, when I first met her, my mom had, brought her in the house and I was away for a trip. I came home and that's when we first started interacting. It was like that, but times 20 maybe. The biting times 20. So even this version of her was not even like where she was. Yeah.
Sure.
And so I'm happy to see this. This is great.
Yeah. And this, again, it's not obedience. This is just me taking control and saying like, hey, just chill.
Yeah.
Right? So you wouldn't learn this because it's too nuanced, it's too complicated for people.
Yeah.
But I will show you how to correct things you don't want and how to, teach the obedience and all that stuff. Okay? So, like for instance, with all the stuff that just happened with her, like getting too stimulated, you could use a collar for that as well. Okay? Because it's just press a button because you're essentially just nipping or biting at her, telling her to go chill.
Yeah.
Like there's no need to get that worked up. Okay? So here, any questions about this stuff so far?
No, not really. So the collar is just something of course we'll use it for the rest. I like that you used the analogy about the biting because we've of course looked at training people and they don't use that analogy. I understand that so much better. I have no problem with the collar. Like I said, I reconcile everything. But it is something like she'll wear it for the rest of her life, or is it something we take off when we feel like it, or take on? She learns certain things, but we put it back on and
Right.
need to train her.
So, easiest way to explain that would be, do you drive?
Okay, not really because of COVID. We're
Sure,
home.
but you've driven.
Yeah.
Have you been on the expressway?
Yeah.
Did you go the speed limit?
I would go the speed limit.
So you may,
Yeah.
but I think you would agree that almost everybody doesn't.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like it's the one thing on the expressway. In the inner city, we go the speed limit, right?
Yeah.
But on the expressway, that's the most common thing that people don't do.
Okay.
Right? They don't go the speed limit. But when they see a squad car, what happens?
Go the speed limit.
They have to slow down because now there's threat of consequence.
Yeah.
So here, think of that e-collar as a confident collar. Okay? When she's wearing it, she's going to be more well behaved. She's going to listen more, right? She's going to be obedient. She knows, hey, that cop is here. When you remove it, she's gonna go, hey, the cop is gone, okay? It's normal. It's called opportunistic behavior. So, if there's a pond of water, and let's say there's an alligator in there, I'm not sure alligators are freshwater, but it's an analogy. Let's say there's an alligator there. If the animals know, they will not drink water, because they know there's a threat, okay? If they see the alligator leave, they come in to drink water, and when the alligator comes back, they leave, okay? Because they know the threat is back, okay? So it's opportunistic behavior is part of survival instinct. So it's kind of like that whole, I think there's like a challenge now where people putting candy in front of their kids and like, hey, don't eat this, and you don't eat this, and you don't get mad, right?
Yeah.
Some kids do it, some kids don't, right? Opportunistic behavior, okay? Me growing up, hey Jesse, you're grounded, you can't watch TV. And I was raised for the most part by a single mom. And then she's like, and I'm the oldest of 4 kids. And then like she might ground me, but then she's like, oh crap, I gotta go to the grocery store. Watch the kids and don't watch TV, right?
Yeah.
Sure, mom, I'm not gonna watch TV. Opportunistic behavior, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for dogs. So it has nothing to do with the training, it has nothing to do with the methods or anything like that. I'm not supposed to train them. It's just simply the way of the world.
Yeah.
If you see a dog who's very well trained, like on YouTube or something, you have to take into account that is a dog that was most likely owned or is most likely owned by a dog trainer who put thousands of hours into that dog.
Yeah.
Okay. My dogs have been off leash trained for 8 to 9 years. My pit has the most training, so she would be the most reliable. Okay, but I've been consistent with her since I first got her at 3 months, and for the first 2 years of her life, it was a ton of training. Okay, so she knows her stuff really, really well.
Yeah.
But if I took her out without her collar, you'd probably see like an 80, she's probably about 80% of what she knows in terms of performance, right?
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be a dip in behavior when the motivator is going. Whether or not the motivator is good or bad, right? So like, if you're not getting paid, you're going to go to work. No, right? There's no motivator to go to work, right? But let's say there was some kind of harsh consequence for not going to work, despite the fact that you weren't being paid. That's different, right? There has to be something in line that makes you have to go or make you perform something. Same thing for dogs. If you're using positive only and you remove the food or the toy or whatever that motivator is, you're going to see a different performance. With negative, same problem. You remove the bad thing, and no longer use it, you're going to see a different performance. Okay, so I always think it's funny when trainers bash each other, because trainers will be like, oh, we still got to use treats, and the other trainers are like, we still got to use your e-collar, and I'm like, it doesn't matter what tool you use, no matter which one, you remove them, performance dips. Okay, so here she only wear it when she needs it. Okay, when you go on a walk, a lot of stimuli, things to contend with, distractions, right? Off-leash dogs charging that maybe aren't friendly, a lot of stuff. E-collar gives you as close to 100% of I have control of my dog as possible on or off leash, okay? The other thing would be, like let's say in the home, if guests are coming over and she gets really excited with guests, you put it on, your guests come over, maybe she wears it the first 30 minutes, and then once she settles down, you remove it, she's good to go for the rest of the time, okay? So it's as needed. If she's a great dog otherwise, she's not wearing it, okay? In the beginning, expect to be using it a lot because you're teaching everything, okay? Once she starts to learn the skills, you start to use it less, as long as you're being consistent, but it's there just in case one day she decides, well, what if I don't do it today? You're still able to reinforce it, okay? That rule is still always in effect, and dogs are all about consistency. So if one day you call her, and you don't make her return to you, she learns, I don't always have to come back to you. Okay, and then we get, I call them gamblers, because then they're gonna start testing the boundaries. Okay, that's why it's very important that we always use the collar, so that the dog thinks there's no choice but to comply, otherwise there's gonna be some kind of consequence. Okay? Questions about any of this stuff so far?
No, this is all great. This is all great. Let me think. It doesn't really have, I mean, it does have to do with the collar. Just thinking about your opinions on, like you mentioned, the off-leash dog. So the thing about her, I don't know, I guess I wonder your opinion about going to a park and being off-leash and letting your dog just like, if it was an empty park and I just wanted to go there with her, is that like an appropriate thing to do?
Technically, when you have an off-leash trained dog, yes. Okay, so I don't have a problem with off-leash dogs. I have a problem with untrained off-leash dogs. And also untrained owners. So there's something I call off-leash etiquette. So my dog's off-leash trained. Let's say I go to the park and I see a family having a picnic here. I see a gentleman playing fetch with his dog. You know, I see some kids running around here. and my dogs are running around me, right? They'll typically have around a 20 to 30 foot radius, okay? And this is with them being loose.
Yeah.
But let's say I gotta go through these things. I wouldn't just walk through the picnic and let my dogs run up to the people at the picnic,
Yeah.
right? I wouldn't just go like, hey, the guy's playing fetch with his dog, off leash, let me just bring my dogs over, right?
Yeah.
Right? That's the problem, is that people, so there was this lady, because right now we're still training here, but we're gonna transition back to Oz, because that's where we would train prior, right? A lot of distractions at Oz. There's this lady, I saw her several times, I would walk her Yorkie. And her Yorkie, there was this family having like a small little picnic. And the Yorkie's like 50 feet away from the lady, running around peeing on everything, right? Runs into this picnic and starts sniffing and going into the food basket and all that stuff, and then pees on a tree right next to the people. And the guy's like, hey, call your dog.
Yeah.
And then she's like, what? She's like, call your dog. And she's like, this is the part, blah, blah, blah. It was completely rude. I agree with the guy. I'm like, he's there, they got their own little kind of space, and her dog, 50 feet away from her, uncontrolled, doing whatever it wanted. And the real thing was, it's because she couldn't call her dog. You know, because it's funny, because I think people who have trained their dog understand. You know, like there's just kind of this natural like courtesy or, you know, etiquette.
Yeah.
So if I were to have done, you know, if I were to walk my dogs, I would have called my dogs in, popped them in the heel, but the first thing is that would have never happened. I would have navigated around that stuff, keeping my dogs close to me, and then when I had the capacity of like, oh, we have plenty of space now you can go free, right? That's the purpose of training. So I don't have a problem with it. Do be aware that there are off-leash laws, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay, in the city of Chicago. Now, if you go to Oz Park, if you go to like John Field Park or whatever, or here on the Boulevard, you'll see plenty of off-leash dogs. Technically, it's against the law, okay? It's not really enforced unless people complain about it.
Okay.
Is what I've learned throughout years. Okay. So like there was I think it's Wrightwood Park. I had a client who used to take her dog there off leash to go play. A number of the neighbors did, but there was one lady who kept calling the cops and kept calling the cops to come. And finally they came to like, hey everybody, we know you're from the neighborhood, but we gotta tell you to stop this because this lady does not stop calling the precinct, whatever, right? So it happens, but like in Oz Park, there's like a little patch there where people always take their dogs off leash, but it's not technically a dog park. Okay, but you know, it's like I would take my dog from lakefront and let them run around off leash and stuff. But again, I have courtesy, I have etiquette, I have complete control over my dogs.
Yeah.
So yes, you can just be mindful of stuff like that. Super rare if that would happen. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've only ever had one cop tell me to leash my dogs. Okay.
Yeah.
So it also comes down to how much work you put into it. Okay. You definitely have to so recall is the one command that has to be off leash reliable. Everything else doesn't really matter. Okay. So and recall also takes the longest to teach. Heel is the fastest because you walk your dog multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Heel is the longest. Recall is the longest because it requires you to go somewhere. You gotta go to the park. You gotta pop her on a long leash. You gotta let her have fun.
Yeah.
Call her from the fun. Let her back to the fun, right? Squirrels, rabbits, dogs, people, whatever. You have to use all these things in order for your recall to be applicable. If you only practice with her in the backyard, she'll be great in the backyard. But then as soon as you go to the park, not so great.
Yeah.
It's a different environment, okay? So that's gonna take the longest, so don't think at the end of 6 classes, everything's gonna be amazing. The recall is gonna be a work in progress, okay?
Yeah.
But you will have all the tools needed and the knowledge to get there, okay? Because if you go once a week to the park to practice, it's gonna take you a really long time to get a solid recall. If you go once a day, maybe a couple months, you'll get there, okay? And everybody's progression is different, because people always ask me like, how do we know when we're ready? I said, you'll know. You'll know.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I've had clients that I told them, man, your dog is amazing, great job, that they're off leash reliable, right? And they're like, but the owner themselves doesn't trust the dog. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I can see it, and I tell them, no rush, you keep practicing. And then when you're ready, you'll do it.
Yes, that's exactly what I said. It's a trusting, because even when we go to the park, I mean, of course she's not trained, and she's fine with dogs. She'll come up to me and check in with me, and I notice that with her. But it's my trust with. You just have to practice, you know. And, yeah, of course.
And that all comes in time, you know. The one thing that people don't account for is emergencies.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I always say, like, if you can handle the emergency, everything else is easy peasy. Because that's the hardest thing in life.
Yeah.
My dog, someone blew up a firework and my dog was taken off. That's the most common thing that I come across with dogs running away from people. And when we go through the training, I'll tell you, like, at a certain point, you're gonna do this with the collar to force your dog into stress, to force them to run away. So that you can work, counter condition them and teach them running away is never an option.
Yes.
Always run to me.
Yes.
Okay? So it's hard for people to do because it's not the nicest thing, but we do it with the intention of, like, I know emergencies like that happen. I've heard some crazy stories throughout the years, and the last thing I want is for an owner to tell me, like, hey, Jess, my dog took off and got hit by a car, or took off and, like, I couldn't get them back, right?
Yeah.
But that's also why I insist on the collar. So I was walking my dogs through Logan Square, and I got over by California. My pit hates fireworks.
Okay.
And she gets super anxious, she gets super flighty.
Yeah.
I didn't have her collars on because I was just going for a walk, and my dogs don't need them if they're on leash. So we're walking, and some dude randomly fires a firework, and this happened twice. And it was like August, October. So it's not July, so I'm not expecting it. My pit flips out, and she's just like, pulling. She's like, oh, she's panicked. She wants to go home. And I'm like, oh crap. I'm just like, I wish I would have just had my collar because it's that stuff that I tell people about.
Yeah.
But because I knew they weren't going to be off leash, I was like, it's fine. But when that happened, and I wasn't expecting the firework to happen, I was like, this is why I always tell everybody, have your collar on, because stuff like that happens randomly. And I want to know that if the dog does flip out, I have a great chance of getting them back.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Any questions about that stuff?
Man, I had a question, but you're so compelling. I'm like, oh my God, let me think. Man, I forget my question, but I completely agree. It's really the emergency situation. Like, I just want to have that trust. I want, like, all of that. Yes. Especially the emergent situations. Question. Thank you. My mind is, as I'm talking. So you use a loud sound. Is that what you're saying? Like, use
No. So, couple of things. During the training, there's certain things that I'll have you do, and I'll explain them in the training. And I'm gonna say, we do this because one day your dog is gonna get confused and run away.
Yeah.
But you're gonna be on a long leash.
Okay.
So I'm not worried about is your dog gonna run away because they're still tethered to you. They can only get 30 feet of you.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things that I do in the training to force mistakes on behalf of the dog. That's one way of proofing. The last thing that I do, so our collars go 0 to 127 in increments of 1, is once you feel you're at a point where you're like, man, Queenie is amazing, okay? I'll say, 6 months from now, 6 months from the time you start training, whatever, when you feel you're ready, you're gonna go out there long leash. You're gonna take your collar and you're gonna max it out to 127. Let Queenie be a dog. And without any warning, without any sound, you're gonna use 127. It's the harshest thing that you could do to your dog, okay?
Yeah.
To force a situation. She's gonna take the hit, she's gonna go, shit, that sucks. Then we go, is she gonna run? Or is she gonna run to me? Okay, but I have her on a long leash. So if she tries to run off, it means it wasn't proofed enough.
Yeah.
But then we're gonna use max power to make her return. Because every time anybody has ever come to me, dog took off fireworks, dog took off towards the street, dog took off after a sport or whatever, and was going towards a street or a road, 127 continuous.
Yeah.
They've all told me the same thing, 127 continuous got me dog back. Because it can override the situation. So I do it in a controlled context first to expose the dog so that we can work them through it. If they decide, hey, I don't like this and they want to run away, which is natural, we're going to use that same power to make them return.
Yeah.
Okay, it sucks, but it's in case that happens, you've already done it.
It's like the fire. I mean, like, if you're gonna.
Yeah, fire escape plan.
They know.
You have to have a fire escape plan. You practice it even though there's no fire, because when there is a fire, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to perform every little step like the way it's supposed to. You're going to be panicking, but you're going to have a baseline. It's the same thing here.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something I always tell my clients, I'm like, it's optional, but trust me, it's something you're going to want to do. Because the other thing is, it puts the dog under stress, but then the owner goes under stress, right? And so I was like, and if you take this into a real life situation, it's a stressful situation as it is. You're panicking because your dog is running away. Your dog is panicking because they heard a firework. And then you're trying to use 127 to make that override the situation. Now your dog's panicking even more.
Yeah.
it's a lot going on there, right? So it just preps the dog, it primes the dog for that. So if they ever feel 127 in the future, they're like, hey, this is familiar, return.
Yeah.
Okay? Other questions?
No, that's great response, thank you.
So, yeah, heal 2 classes, recall 2 classes. Classes 5 and 6 are variables, okay? The behavior stuff that you brought up today, super simple, nothing out of the ordinary. Is your dog's just very easily stimulated, and it just needs some rules and boundaries, okay? The collar that she would need, how much does she weigh?
Man, I'm so sorry. I always kind of guess like 40 pounds. I can look at her vet records and get back to you.
So, what I would recommend with Pitties is I would just tell people to get the black edition, which Maria will send you the info. Okay, and so the brand that I use is Dogtra.
Okay.
D-O-G-T-R-A. Dogtra Black Edition. Okay, it's the most powerful collar there is.
Okay.
The reason why I say that is because one, Pitties are known for getting too lost in here. Okay, so if something happens, you have to account for the mental state. We have stress levels, we have mental state, we have the size of the dog, we have the physical toughness of the dog. And also dogs are just naturally physically tough because they bite each other. They use physicality to communicate. So their threshold for discomfort is much greater than a human's. Okay, so it's perfectly safe to use even on a smaller dog. It's meant for 70 pounds and over. I could put on my 8-pound chihuahua and it's perfectly fine. Okay, it's more output, which means less from you get more from less. Okay, because we want to always think about emergency situation. So like if we got the collar that was appropriate to her, and she's speeding like a bullet away from something, and she's like panicked, the power may not be enough to override all that stuff. Okay, so that's why we always tell people opt for a little bit more in case, because you want to think emergency situation. It's the best collar there is, so it's kind of like you don't even have to worry about anything. Because I do get some dogs, and it's super rare, where the owner will choose a lesser powered collar, and the dog is too resilient, and they need to buy another collar to actually get their dog to perform. You know. So the collar runs by, I believe, around $325 packs. You can get them on Amazon. They last for years. I've had mine for 8-9 years. So it's an investment, but again, it lasts a long time. The most common thing that we see is the battery is a rechargeable lithium battery, so they do get worn out, they're much like your cell phone. You can go on the website or you can call the company, and they'll either, you can purchase one for $15-20 and replace it yourself, or you can send it in and they'll replace it for you and then send it back. Anything else?
I'm just thinking about when we are on our walks, this might be corrected with the heel, but like getting to like, I see some dogs, they sit when they get to the crosswalk. I just wonder, is that like part of this training?
It's part of the heel.
Okay.
So heel means walk with me, stay when I stop.
Okay.
It's automatic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But that's another one of her things. I have a scar because like, I'm just happy to be here. Let's just
sure. Okay. Yeah. So at minimum for what you explained to me, I believe 6 classes. We have 9 and 12, and essentially you would just achieve more.
Okay.
So think of 6 classes as I walk my dog, I go to the park. 9 classes, walk my dog, go to a park, go to restaurants. And then 12 classes is all that stuff, and we go hiking. We're gonna go to the dog beach. She's gonna be off leash in unenclosed areas a lot. We go to family parties and things like that a lot. She goes and does a lot of stuff. Is that you need the full control. Okay. But from what you've explained to me, sounds like the 6 classes is where you're at.
Yeah, and I mean, like when we get there, I'm able to maybe say, hey, can we extend this, or do I have to kind of say that first?
So you can always buy more classes. Okay. But the way it works is, for example, at we have a 3-class program too, which is real simple. 3 classes is I think $550.
Okay.
6 classes is $925. Okay, if I'm remembering correctly. So if someone did 3 and then said like, hey, I want another 3, they would pay another $550. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you commit upfront to more classes, you get a lower rate. Okay. I used to let people prorate it, but then it was messing up my calendar because I'm at like 30 something clients right now. And then we have boarded trains and then daycare trains. Plus I run all this stuff here. Is that it's easiest if the person says like, hey, you know what, I want a fully trained dog, 12 classes, and we've even had people commit to 12. They did 6 in the wintertime, and then they took a break and they're gonna finish the last 6 in the summertime.
Okay.
But they committed to 12 up front because they wanted the discount, but
Yes.
they split it up and they just told us ahead of time.
Okay,
I
yeah.
don't have a problem with that. It's really, it's coming in going, hey, I want 6, and go, no problem, and then they're like, yeah, we want more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, uh-oh. So, but yeah, it doesn't matter to me what you do. For what you're dealing with here, 6 is what I would recommend.
Totally, and I know you have like the different options of the training, but I mean, I suggested the daycare.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was wondering what your.
My whole thing whenever anybody asks for training is if you can do it yourself, do it yourself.
Okay.
It takes longer, but you learn a lot more.
Okay.
The biggest problem with daycare trains and boarding trains, and this is with any facility, is the transference. Okay, now ours comes with a lot of classes, or in my opinion, a number of classes greater than most other trainers to help transfer everything to you.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're not going to have the know-how of how my dog learned this, all the work that was put into it. Plus, let's say you did like a 10-day daycare and train or whatever. It's all tied to us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to see responding to us, and then we have to transfer that to you. So there's still always work to do. Okay, it's just less work because she already knows the skills, and now she's trying to transfer that she needs to be obedient to you as well. Biggest problem that I see with people is that because the obedience is very much body language based, is here's all this information, and then they forget it and they jumble it up. And I actually just had a client who did a 15-day daycare train, and they had the first class, everything was going great. Then they had their second follow-up, and they're like, Jesse, like the dog's not doing anything, like it's screwed up and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here, right? Because we're good trainers. They were doing all the body language stuff wrong. So their communication was off, so the dog did not know what was going on.
Yeah.
As soon as I helped them clear up their body language stuff, all of a sudden, the dog was doing really well. So when you do it yourself, and I teach you topic by topic, you're practicing that for a week. Okay, so you're kind of getting into your muscle memory, like the certain body movements and stuff like that. So less likely to come across problems like that. Okay. Now in your case, because she is social, I would say yes, daycare and train is an option because your primary concern is obedience. Okay, but if you'd rather learn more and get more value of knowledge from your investment, one-on-one training is the best.
One-on-one, okay. I was wondering the title, great. And so then for one-on-one training, I'd come here and
here, and at some point we're going to transition to Ospark.
Okay.
I think we have people booking. They're actually booking later because they're wanting us to work at Ospark.
Yeah.
But we have some that are currently working now, and then once the weather is nice, we're going to do that.
Cool.
So you get some kind of exposure. But all the training that you'll do on your own time would be outside.
Cool. Yeah, totally.
Anything else?
No. Do you have like daycare options outside of the training? Because the reason I did choose that was because she was social, but I do want to be present in the process. So
yeah. So yeah, you can absolutely do daycare.
Okay.
And then we reinforce the training here.
Okay.
So her being trained by us opens up her day a little more because we do other things with dogs that are trained that other dogs can't do.
Yeah.
Okay, and throughout the day, as they take her outside the potty, they walk her and all that stuff, they utilize the training that she's learned, so it's being reinforced, and it's not like a free-for-all here, and then you go home and she's like, hey, we keep the structure here, we do play, we do treadmill time, we do duration work, which is lay here, don't move for a bit, a lot of stuff going on. If the dog acts up, we correct it, maybe she's getting too mouthy during play, we would correct it. So it falls right in line with anything that you're doing as well.
Awesome.
Okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a 3-day evaluation process. It's $60 for 3 days, so $20 a day.
Okay.
To acclimate her to the facility. Even though, like, we get dogs, friendly golden retrievers, it's the same process for them because most places just throw them in, and that's too stressful for a dog.
Yeah.
So here we do a slow acclimation. First day, she doesn't do anything with the dogs, but she's out on the floor. The handlers are walking her and all that stuff. She's getting used to what she does, treadmill time, do ball time or play time if she is into toys. The second day she comes, we start to bring dogs around her and her around dogs to see is there anybody she doesn't vibe with or is there dogs that don't vibe with her. And then the third day we start to do one-off pairings.
Cool.
Okay, and then we find out what her energy is like, what her play style is like, and then from there we can start to put her into groups. And then we'll tell you, yeah, she's great, bring her by. some dogs, even, we have a dog right now that is social with the parents, is social, but here, antisocial. Okay, because of the new environment. Owners are gonna, because she doesn't know anything outside of her owners.
Yeah.
So we have to act like the 3 days wasn't enough. Hers is gonna be a longer process. Had a couple other dogs that were social, and they literally came here 20 times before they started to play. Okay, so just as a heads up on that, because some people are like, why is my dog playing? Like, because they're not ready.
Yeah.
We do not rush them. But they do get plenty of exercise and exposure and all that stuff. Dogs playing, socialization is not having about play. It's being able to be around dogs and just be like this.
Yes.
Okay, and then when the time comes when you can play, and now you can play.
Exactly. Great. I love that.
Okay.
That is all.
Anything else?
Nope. You've answered everything, so thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So if you have any questions, just let us know. I'm going to talk to Maria. She'll get back to you.
Okay.
There is a lot of requests, a lot of consultations coming through, so if there's a delay, no worries. If you're wanting to start sooner rather than later and you know what you're wanting, you can just turn around and email her and tell her, hey Maria, sign me up 6 classes or whatever.
Yeah.
Because then she'll start that process. Because typically I email her and she goes over everybody in succession, So if you can turn around and tell her like, yes, I want it, and then she'll start the process for you right away because she doesn't have to email you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if she doesn't get to you for like a day or so, no worries. It's just we got a lot of requests.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you need anything else, let us know. I'm gonna go ahead and put her on her original setup here.
Yeah, I'm excited for a completely different setup. Thank you.
And how did you find this?
It's crazy. I think I probably found you. I was very interested in behaviorism and making sure that, the behaviorism aspect of training was important. And I follow you guys on Instagram and